What's up, Sementine here, checking out the real-time strategy game Homeworld Deserts of Kharak on PC. Developed by BlackBird Interactive, their first official game, Deserts of Kharak has you taking command over a gigantic land carrier known as the Kapisi. You and your crew are the last hope to save your people against the hostile natives of the planet by reaching an artifact deep within the desert that contains more power than the sun.
Select the command carrier to launch aircraft. Launch aircraft by selecting the carrier and clicking the Launch Ability button. After left-clicking the button, left-click a target location to launch your aircraft.
Strike fighter coordinates dialed in.
Being a real-time strategy, there are a couple of gameplay features that you would expect, like being able to assign units into groupings to easily select them again, shortcut keys to build additional units, and the usual movement mechanics with attack, move, guard, and more. You also have the same process of building new units, requiring you to go out with scavengers and mine materials from various vehicle debris that have been left to waste away in the desert, to then use in constructing vehicles with more powerful vehicles requiring more resources. However, where in most real-time strategy games like StarCraft or Dawn of War, where you have to build certain buildings in order to advance the tech tree and to be able to build more advanced units, Deserts of Kharak, due to the game's emphasis of always being on the move, trades the idea of a dedicated base location and buildings for a moving base with an engineering lab in the form of the Kapisi carrier. This makes it extremely easy to defend, at least during the campaign, as it can slowly follow you to your objective. At certain points during the campaign, this advantage is taken away from you though, via impassable terrain, so it acts like a normal base in those circumstances, but it's still able to defend itself against a couple of enemy squads with onboard guns and missiles. As you've probably noticed, especially if you're an RTS player, there isn't any kind of minimap on the screen, a vitally important component to keep track of everything that's going on the map. Instead, Deserts of Kharak uses a zoomed out sonar view of the map by pressing space, turning your main screen blue and enabling you to zoom way out to be able to see the entire map. This does take some time to get used to, as you can't quickly travel across the map outside of focusing on one of your quick select groups, as well as not being able to see where enemy contacts are while on the main play screen if it's outside of your camera's view. Jumping out of the main screen into the sonar view provides a better strategic overview, revealing enemy movement even while they're in the fog of war through these red pings, and is actually what you'll be playing in most of the time for the best overview of the battle. Changing back to the normal view to see the explosions and carnage in all its glory. For your available units, there are the usual roles that are filled with a nimble but fragile scout for disruption, tanks for average damage and durability, and a heavy sniping railgun for dealing massive damage to enemy units. These three units will act as your basic attacking force, with combat tactics usually comprising of scouts leading enemy forces into your railguns and tanks' fire. Being a carrier, the Kapisi can also launch various aircraft that deal devastating hit and run damage, able to strike enemies extremely far away. Later on down the tech tree, you'll be able to produce various large battle cruisers with a ton of hit points, and that can deal a ton of damage but require a pretty hefty resource investment. Most of the vehicles also have unique activatable abilities that you can take advantage of, like the tank's smokescreen ability that is crucial if the enemy has a large amount of railguns, as it will break their line of sight, rendering them useless at least for a couple of seconds. Other abilities include a mind control that can recruit an enemy's vehicle into your army, and an EMP grenade that disables any vehicles caught in its effect for a short period of time. Your vehicles can also be upgraded with passive abilities and general stat upgrades to increase their performance out on the battlefield. These upgrades for each vehicle are linear, so you don't get to pick and choose the upgrades to apply, rather just the vehicle you want to upgrade. Vehicles can also receive passive promotions based on how many kills they have obtained, increasing certain base stats. Out on the battlefield, there are a couple of environmental elements to take note of that can either help or hinder your combat effectiveness. The most important being height advantage that will provide your units or your enemies with double damage. It isn't obviously apparent where the high ground is, as most of the environment looks much the same as deserts do from a top-down view. However, the game acknowledges this and overlays a geography height map over the landscape when using a unit's movement ability, with the lighter colour displaying the higher ground. Other than that, there are also tornadoes that travel across the environment, and if any units are caught within, they will take a significant amount of damage. Overall, the gameplay attempts a couple of new things here and there with the traditional RTS formula, and for the most part, they work really well. Some players may not like the map changes, especially if you're more of a micro player that likes to see the action, while also micromanaging your units halfway across the map. The various different mission types available in the campaign though are fantastic, especially compared to some other RTS campaigns that just feel like you're doing the same thing over and over.
Shutter test green. Get CENTCOM up. See if they have any new reports to share on the current AO. Alright, we're on top of it. Cooling tanks online at 4.3, power plant reading 5.9.
Deserts of Kharak could have easily just aimed for a very simplistic graphic style for both the environment and more so for the characters, as the camera is zoomed out quite far for a majority of the game. It's not though, and zooming right into the action you can see just how detailed and awesome the units look. The vehicles are based around near future tech, with the Gaussian forces being a little bit more advanced in their tech, hovering above the ground. The environment, despite being based around a desert environment, actually provides some very interesting landscapes to play around in, as well as various landmarks like crashed spaceships and buried carriers along the way. As for special effects, it's definitely the bigger weapons of the game that make the best looking effects, like carpet bombs from planes and missiles deployed from your carrier. The cutscenes strewn throughout the missions switch between two different styles, the first being in-game cutscenes of the game's models with some fancy camera work, and the second style, that is by far the coolest, is the hand-drawn animated style that makes them a lot more interesting to watch than just a camera circling an in-game vehicle. Overall, the graphics provide just the right amount of detail so that when you do zoom in, you're not just looking at various rectangles but actual detailed vehicles. The environments, even though being wasteland desert based, provide some very interesting layouts with both natural and human made obstacles throughout.
Unidentified contact. Designate as hostile.
The music in Deserts of Kharak is composed of a very Middle Eastern sound that suits your surroundings of desert and appropriately amps up in its intensity with the battle currently at hand. The voice acting in the game is pretty good, and not only does the voice acting add some background information while playing, it also adds some mission and status updates during the mission briefing screen that is definitely worth sticking around to listen to for more information about the world and what exactly is going on. The sound effects of various vehicles is pretty good too, especially for some of the harder hitting vehicles in the game, like the railguns and bomber jets that make it so satisfying to take out larger groups of enemies in fiery explosions. Some of the more unique sounds in the game include the air-to-ground fire support, and the cruise missile from the carrier.
Sakala carrier has sustained moderate damage.
Today we embark on a historic mission to find and retrieve the Kharaki object. Lying at the heart of the Great Banded Desert, deep inside Gaussian territory. It holds the key to our survival on this planet.
Deserts of Kharak's storyline follows the carrier Capisi and its crew as they are sent on a last-ditch effort to find and retrieve an extremely powerful artifact buried somewhere out in the desert. Failing to do so will see the extremely religious Gaussian wipe out what is left of your people and leave you stranded out in the desert wasteland. Succeeding in your task, well, it's not really known what powers the artifact actually holds, so you could just end up in the exact same position, but hopefully not. The aggressive nature between the different races living on Kharak is a religious-based conflict where the Gaussian believe any attempt to leave the planet of Kharak will bring their god's wrath down upon them, and when the coalition begins delving into space travel, war began to engulf the planet. The main character the game focuses on is Rachel Sajet, a coalition scientist riding around in her very own support vehicle. Throughout the journey, you'll discover various important locations that will both act as secondary storylines, as well as additional information about the world around you and the people of Kharak. The storyline being so closely entwined with the gameplay makes for a really great campaign to play through, while with attacking, defending, espionage, and co-op missions with the AI, providing a nice variety in gameplay, all relating very closely with the actual storyline. Overall, the story is rather interesting, especially for an RTS, and isn't just provided through cutscenes between every other mission. It contains a big dose of mystery both in the main storyline and the side stories, as well as providing some twists and turns to keep you intrigued throughout. Other features of the game include multiplayer, which I was unable to try out due to pre-release conditions, but you will be able to take part in 1v1, 2v2 and 3v3 battles across 5 different maps, able to play as either the Coalition or Gaussian in ranked and unranked competition. You'll also be able to make your army unique, at least cosmetically, by changing around their primary and trim colours. You can also take the multiplayer mechanics into the single player skirmish mode to play against AI, and that about does it for extra features.
Rachel.
Yes, I read you. That was close.
Altogether, Homeworld Deserts of Kharak receives a good rating. It offers a nice change from the usual base building style gameplay that is typical with the RTS genre, allowing for more freedom with gameplay mission variants. The campaign provides a very intriguing storyline right from the beginning and just keeps on adding layers of mystery and twists on top. The graphics, while not being incredibly detailed like it would be in a first-person game for obvious reasons, still provides a lot of detail for when you get up close to the action, and the hand-drawn art style of the cutscenes is really well done, making for some very entertaining and beautiful cutscenes. Both the music and various sound effects of the game really bring you into the setting of the world and atmosphere of battle. I recommend picking it up if you're all looking for a good single-player real-time strategy campaign. Anyway, that's my review for Homeworld Deserts of Kharak. The game released on the 20th of January and is available to purchase via Steam for $49.99 or your regional equivalent. If you want to find out more about the game, check out the links below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Reinforcements have arrived. I say again, Sadim reinforcements have arrived. All units,